Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution.
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 You want a revolution?
You say you want a revolution?
Revolution. The revolution.
It's going on right now.
Welcome to The Revolution, the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we ask today's most successful entrepreneurs to share the tools and strategies they use to build relationships and connections to grow their revenue. Now, your host for The Revolution, John Corcoran.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here, the host of this show, and I'm excited to bring you another episode. Of course, if you have not checked out this program before, check out our archives. We've got great interviews with smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs, ranging from recently we had Grubhub, Redfin, Netflix, Kinko's, YPO, EO, Activation Blizzard, Lending Tree, and many more. Go check out the archives. Of course, this episode brought to you by Rise25, where we help B2B businesses to get clients referrals and strategic partnerships with done-for-you podcasts and content marketing. And you can learn all about what we do at rise25.com. All right, my guest here today is Ben Ridler, also known as BenZen. He is a longtime entrepreneur, started a number of different companies, starting with a coaching business, which eventually morphed into a company called results.com. Check out that domain, amazing domain to have. And now has a company called MeetingZen, which we'll talk about a bit as well. But he's basically started a number of different companies in his native New Zealand and also in Silicon Valley that has received a number of awards. And he's a longtime member of Entrepreneurs Organization, about 20 years, which is how he and I connected. So we're going to talk about his story. And Ben, such a pleasure to have you here. And I love asking people about their entrepreneurial ventures as a kid. And you had a lot of them. So everything from selling sweet corn, selling weed, selling, you had a hot dog stand where you followed a chain of a bunch of gypsies around New Zealand, you said. Tell me about some of these little entrepreneurial ventures that young BenZen did.
Well, I guess growing up on a farm, there's a lot of opportunities to earn an extra dollar. And so, I was always like doing something, selling stuff on the side of the road or whatever it might be. So that's kind of how I got started. And when I was 10, my dad sort of left the corporate world and went into his own business. And so that kind of had a big impact on our life at the time. It sort of family holidays became a lot less and weekends became a lot less. And so that really impacted me, although I didn't realize it at the time. So as I was kind of doing the same thing in my early 20s with a young family, I came across this whole concept of business dev and decided I needed to master business. But, each of those little ventures gives you a lesson. Like the hot dog stand was amazing. We were cruising around with all these hippies doing these gypsy fairs in each town, yeah. And the big lesson I took out of that one was to find the starving crowd. Because the best day I ever had on the hot dog stand was the worst food I ever sold.
Worst food you ever sold? And it was
worst food I ever
was
sold.
Hungry?
Yeah, so here's what happened. Like we bought a whole lot of stuff for New Year's Eve and we went to this seaside town where the thing was and it didn't fire and we had this food left over and we had an event 2 days later and we're like, should we chuck it out, buy new stuff? Should we sell this? It'll be a bit stale. We'll run with the stuff. We don't have a lot of money. We're kids. And, that next event, we had people basically from 11 till 2, 10 deep, just eating our stuff as fast as we could serve it till we sold out. Even though that was the only time we was awful. Serve stale food. And it's like, look, your product can be great, your product can be crap. If you can't find a starving crowd who's looking for it, it doesn't really matter. So where are they? And so, that's what I think with every business. You'll take the lessons and move on. So
literally, you got to find your starving crowd. Yeah.
And if there's no starving crowd, it doesn't matter how good your hot dog is, eh?
Right. No, this is interesting because your business, you're in your early 20s or so. I think you got into coaching, which evolved over time, turned into a franchising business, turned into results.com. Imagine I'm skipping a few steps along there. how did you get into coaching and then going from coaching to franchising a coaching business? Because that's a difficult business model to franchise, I would think.
Yeah, it was really interesting. So how it happened is I was in my early 20s. I had started fixing windscreens. I was going door to door initially doing stuff. Another guy was fixing windscreens. I started doing that. And then I ended up with too much work. So I put a guy on. And earlier on than that, I'd had a franchise in a franchise company that was early, and I saw how it grew. So like I was super young, 23, 24, and I decided to do a franchise with my business. And I started franchising it. I had no idea what I was doing. Probably shouldn't have been allowed, but the laws were what they were then. And so we ended up adding all these franchisees. And there were some amazing lessons that came out of that, because originally I did it just to make a buck. But actually, I had a massive positive impact on some people's lives, and it really changed my whole relationship with building businesses. But, while I was doing that, like I was working everything out myself. I was, not seeing my kids. I had another baby due. And then I went along to this seminar, this guy, like how to grow your business. And this was actually before the term business coaching existed. Yeah. And I was like, oh my God, business is not like school. You're allowed to cheat. You can copy people. Like, why doesn't everyone know this? Why didn't my dad know this? Yeah. And so like I literally decided in that moment, that's what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to teach business owners how to run businesses so they could get back, home to their kids. And I was only 24, I think, at the time. So I went up to the guy after the seminar, and he's probably heard this 100 times. Like, hey man, I want to do what you do. Like, what do you think? Should I go to university, get a degree? Because I'd been kicked out of high school, so I hadn't done any tertiary at that stage. Or should I carry on with my business? So no, definitely carry on with your business. So I gave myself 3 years, and I signed up with every coaching and consulting type firm I could find on the planet. And I went and learned from all of them, told them exactly why I was there, and applied it to my business. And it worked really well. And I ended up meeting a company. I looked at the eMyth Master License, the Action International Master License for New Zealand, and I worked with some of the eMyth and the Action guys. And then I came across this company, the Results Group, which was basically selling CDs and books and tapes, but they had a really good events program around it. And their business model had run out of juice. And the owner messaged me for a coffee, and he was looking at franchising. So I ended up buying half that initially and then buying him out later. And so that's how it started. So originally we were a franchise called Results in Business. And then when I took over as majority shareholder, I did this culture survey because I didn't want to lead the company. The partner I had was a senior guy. I was the younger guy. I was the ops guy in the background. He was the guru, and I didn't want to be the guru. I could see how much pressure it put on him. And so I was I was looking at what to do here, and I remember this guy, one of the franchisees, because I was the youngest person in the company by half the age of the rest. And suddenly the board had asked me to be CEO, and the other guy had gone, and I was like, wow, that's the last job I wanted. And the guy said, leadership, sometimes, you don't choose leadership, it chooses you. You'll be all right. And I was like, okay. So I got a leadership coach. And I got this franchise relationships, Greg Nathan, guy out of Australia who wrote the franchising E-Factor book. And they did a survey of our franchise culture, and they're reading me the feedback. And I'm like feeling beat up, and I'm like, oh yeah, look, it's me. It's my leadership. We should get someone else.
This is a survey of your employees, not your franchisees?
Of our franchisees. So of our franchise culture, of everyone in the company, complete 360. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's me. It's my leadership. And he's like, no, you don't understand. We've done 650 companies globally, and this is the second best franchise culture we've ever found. And I was like, oh, I get it. See, the problem in franchising is often your interests and, your franchisees are diametrically opposed.
Yeah.
You spend all this wasted energy on them and us. And one way to mitigate that is always have company-owned franchises. But what I did after that is I unfranchised the company and turned it into professional practices with some company-owned offices and then some JV offices where the partners owned half and we owned half. And it was
you did that, why?
Alignment, to get all this them and us shit out the way so we could move the business forward. Because the only way we could move it forward under that model was more franchisees. Yeah. Whereas we wanted to actually grow the businesses. And so we moved them to professional practices. We consolidated them into 9 offices in New Zealand. And here was what was amazing. We had the same product in the same market at the same price with the same people. And 3 years later, we were the 9th fastest growing company in New Zealand. And it was
and you just attributed it to changing the model, the structure?
Well, we did other things, but look, whether it's business, whether it's health, like you can't put more energy through something that's not alive. Yeah. The 2 things you've got to have are alignment and energy, and alignment comes first. If you want to if you want to put the foot down on a business and you don't have alignment, you blow it up. So getting alignment first, then allow all the other things we were trying to do to because we were all working together. So, that's what I put it down to. So, so that company played out for a while and it went quite well. We expanded into the Canada, set up Results Canada, which is still going, still in there, Inc. 500. The New Zealand one's still going too. Then there was a management buyout going on in New Zealand. It was an 8-figure company by then. And so I was snowboarding and chasing girls and, bored. And so I started the software company called Chief Execution Officer with a good friend and a CEO out of Vancouver, Peter Steele. And so we were working on that outside of Results. And then I got a phone call from the guys and they'd messed up and borrowed a whole lot of money in the New Zealand franchise and practice. So they asked me to come back and run it. So I rolled the software back into it, thinking, hey, this will reinvigorate the company. We'll have some cool new stuff to take to market off. We'll go again. But it was strange because they'd done so much harm to the culture in such a short amount of time. All we got was like resistance. And it was a good lesson. I wouldn't go back and try and unfuck a broken culture. Like, it's too hard. It was horrible. But we tried that for a while, and then we got the company stabilized and making money again. And then we had Christmas holidays, and I went to go back to work after Christmas, and I was like, oh, shit, I don't feel like going to work. So my rule is if you don't feel like going to work, change jobs. Life's too short. So I called the guys up, and said, hey, need to come over. And I said, hey, I'm done. And I was the majority shareholder. So the company, the consulting firm was then called results.com. So I took the URL. I took the IP.
And by the way, is there a story around how you got that URL? I know you said you got it around 2014.
That's a story. Anyway, I took those, set up a new company with the software, and that's how results.com became a software company. And that came out of doing 2 years with Stanford on the the Stanford D School in IDEO on design thinking and getting exposure to Silicon Valley. And I was like, I've got to learn from these people. We were teaching core values and vision in the business world. They were doing it in every company, but they did something we weren't doing in New Zealand then. Every company had employee share schemes. And, I'd always been looking for the most alignment, the most, equitable way to run a business. So I've got to learn this. So I literally designed a company to get me to the Valley. And went and spent 4 years learning from those guys. That was awesome. Yeah. So that's how we got there.
So how'd you get the domain? I want to hear how you got the domain.
Okay. So with the Results Group, we were very attached to the word results. We did this deal to go expand. So we were, I think, the biggest in the Gazelles organization by quite a bit. And then the second biggest was a company called AlignLink out of Canada, who were doing a lot of work in the oil and energy industry, and great guys. And so they gave us a call. Hey, we love what you're doing. We'd like to bring it to Canada. And we heard that a lot. I'm like, oh, if you're serious, come to New Zealand and see it properly. And they did. And they were amazing guys. We got on really well. So yeah, we expanded that there. And so we were looking at like trademarks and stuff. And there was a trademark for this results group and that results group, and we couldn't use the name. And so we're thinking we're going to have to rebrand. And I was very into goal setting. And so I was like, man, we just need results.com. Then we'd be sorted. Then we don't need the trademarks. People want to, rip us off. Everyone's going to our website. It's a beautiful brand. So it's like, I had a goal thing on my wall. So I'd wake up, I'd look at the wall in my apartment, and there was like all my goals. I had this artistic girlfriend, so she put them all, make them look calligraphy. And so right in the middle, I put buyresults.com. So every day I get up and go, how am I going to do that? And so
it wasn't in use at the time?
Yeah, and there was a guy sitting on it, and he was wanting to sell it for a fortune. And I managed to convince him that it was going to go down in value and it'd be better to get it now. And so I did a deal to buy it for what was at the time $1 million New Zealand dollars. And then
So
pretty
a
well,
significant chunk of change.
yeah, it was a big chunk of change.
Yeah.
But I figured it'd appreciate. Yeah. And so then,
So how did you if you were convinced it would appreciate it, how did you convince him that otherwise?
Because he wasn't a very experienced entrepreneur, and but you know, I mean, there was an agent involved from a company called Cedu who were great, yeah. But yeah, so we got this deal done. We gave him. We were all set to do the deal. At the time, we had a credit facility which was 30% of our forward book, so it was a few $1 million. And then Lehman Brothers happened all at the same time, like all in the same week, yeah. And all the facilities got pulled, and the banks say, "Hey, it's nothing personal, yeah. Like everything's getting." And I was like,
"So you basically couldn't get the funding."
I couldn't, and then I was like, I really wanted this thing, and I was basically about to sign the deal. So I managed to convince the guy that the banks were really unsafe as well right now, and that he didn't want all that money sitting in a bank because banks were closing down, Fannie Mae and all that, and that I'd pay it over time. So I literally paid it over a few chunks over the next year or so, and it was just like this entrepreneurial juggling act, man. I was moving money here, there, getting people to help. I got some people to invest. It was like, and we pulled it off somehow. And it was powerful. Like as soon as we became results.com, we got taken so seriously. I think capital raising, all sorts of things, everything changed. Yeah. Like I went out to raise 500,000, ended up raising a few $1 million from the first group who came in, The next guys who came in wanted to IPO the company straight away. And I think a lot of that was to do with the brand.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was worthwhile, but it went sideways. One of the investors who came in got a valuation of 20 million US for it. So they tried to liquidate the company and take it out under a redemption clause and run up with it. So yeah, it was good, but it became a bit of a challenge for us.
Dark side to it, yeah. Now, one thing I want to ask you about is you were building remote teams back before that was popular to do, as it has been in the last few years. So tell me what this was like building remote teams 15 years ago or more.
Oh, well. So again, like, because I started in franchising here, the problem in franchising is, people, they're all at their homes struggling with business and you become the enemy. And so keeping people aligned, I had to do a lot of talking. Yeah. And just because as soon as you talk through stuff, it's like, oh no, head office hasn't grown 2 heads. They're all good. And so, I had weekly meetings going on with the guys who were fixing windscreens for me as a group. And then, as we got into the coaching and consulting, how we made that stay aligned is we had weekly meetings, and every 90 days we got everyone together. And that worked really well. So keeping everyone aligned was the key. But yeah, back in the day, we had 9 offices. This was before the cloud. So we had everyone's data sort of integrated into servers, and we had a SharePoint site. And on the front page of that SharePoint site, we had 5 KPIs per office, all the offices listed, and red, yellow, green things. And it got updated at 2:00 on a Friday. And it was amazing. The difference of having that data in terms of the performance of that company was amazing, because, you were now all sitting on one side of the table going, how do we make the data better, instead of telling someone how they're dumb and them not agreeing. And so I guess that lesson I've taken through all the businesses I've done now. So, when I'm consulting with a company, the first thing I'll be doing is getting a control center that has live data in it, and then giving them different views of that for different meetings. I don't bother with reports. They're already out of date. And building remote teams is about trust. If you want a high-performing team, you want trust. And I guess my audience are growth companies. So growth companies means you have to be agile, yeah? Mm-hmm. And so, because things change. So you've got to build a high-performing team that trust each other, and systems and processes that allow you to change and adapt without changing the systems and processes. And so, we kind of worked that out by trial and error over, 3 decades of being in business and 2.5 decades of having remote people.
And this is ultimately what evolved into your current company, which is MeetingZen, right?
Well,
which is kind of the ability to connect and use live data in real time using, 4-dimensional voice, video, data, that sort of thing. So talk a little bit about that, what that company, how the origin of that company.
Yeah, so with results.com, it was way before its time. I should start it again now. We were using cascading metrics from your strategic plan to connect every person in the company's activities to the company KPIs. And so we had dashboards and APIs and all things way back in the day when it was hard to do that stuff. But, the big insight I had is none of it means anything unless you never have a meeting without a data, never have a data without a meeting. Yeah, dashboards for dashboard's sake, wasted time. So then it's, then it was working out what data to put in the meetings and how to run the meetings. So we actually built a component of the meetings within that closed ecosystem and worked out how to make them work. And we had a few big insights and breakthroughs. Live data, very important. Powerful questions, even more important. So, you come to a MeetingZen meeting, you'll have your data here, KPIs, metrics, and there'll be some questions like, how do you feel we've done against our metrics this week? What's standing out, any blockages, whatever it might be. And so those work really well. But, when people are remote, we've got to add some other stuff to it. And so, we've been working through how to create a process that you facilitate without personalities. So the personalities become irrelevant, that will build a high-performing culture. And I think we're doing really well at it, actually. We've got that nailed.
So one thing I know that you're excited about is that AI is all the rage these days. ChatGPT, which came out from OpenAI, has been getting a lot of news in March of 2023 as we're recording this. And that's one of the elements of what you're building into your product.
Yeah, so in 2016, 17, results.com got taken over by a group of investors who also owned a company called ARIA NLG. So they were the leaders in natural language generation, so bringing data to life. I'd imagine they've just been cleaned out a bit by what's happened with the generative AI, but I think they're still pretty strong in the analytics, like looking at data, turning it into words. And so, we became aware then. So we were working with their guys. We were looking at, combining the two companies, and they were looking at me having a leadership role in this AI company. So I was learning all about it. And I decided not to go ahead with it, not because of the business opportunity, but, the values of the organizations weren't aligned. So I moved on. But, what I saw there really showed me that AI was going to change the game completely. All business decade from now will be AI to AI, I suspect, and the bulk of it. And so, we've been watching this space, and we designed MeetingZen. The core engine is what runs your meetings. And alongside that, we've got this concept of the Meetingverse, where we create a meeting aggregator. We've got so much thought leadership and templates, and we're now using machine learning to objectively say, what is the best way to run this type of meeting? How long will this agenda item take? What's the best questions to ask alongside the sales data? And so we'll be able to move meetings from objective to subjective using AI.
So give like an example. You just mentioned sales. Like if you have a sales team, like you could plug it in and say, okay, we have sales meeting. What should the format be? How should I run this meeting?
Yeah, and the idea is you'll go to the Meetingverse, you'll go, okay, we're running a sales meeting, we have this many people, we're in this industry, and you'll go, okay, well, here's how the leading, ones do. And so the idea is people will upvote and share and that type of thing. So that hasn't been built yet. We've built the core engine because you've got to have that right first. And there's two ways to scale SaaS, yeah? Go out to everyone and pull it all back and see what happens, or get it so it's scalable and then get it wide. And this one's viral, so we've got to do the latter. So we've built the core engine, it's working well. And then we're kind of adding then the thought leadership and the things that go around it. But the other area we're using AI with the ChatGPT, which is a great start, we're building that in. So that will basically, as you're in a meeting, you'll be able to ask it, or it'll be able to give you information about any decisions or any questions or any other commentary that's ever been raised about a specific topic in any meetings in your company that you have access to or have been in the past. So as well as being able to answer questions about your company data or search on the internet, it'll also be able to look at all your meeting records. And so I think that becomes pretty powerful pretty quick. But yeah, very excited about the machine learning. And so the idea is you'll go to the Meetingverse, you'll create your meeting, you'll connect your AIs. You can already, with MeetingZen right now, connect all your chat apps, your task apps, and every individual in the meeting can have a different chat app to pre-populate the meeting questions and a different task app where they send the tasks to. So, you don't have to all be in one ecosystem. And then you'll also create, you pick a metaverse environment. So you connect your tasks, your AIs. We've got over 2,000 integrations already with business data that you can pull up live in the meeting. Anything from, SQL dashboards to anything you like pretty much now. And then you'll connect your AIs and connect your metaverse environment. And so that's where we're heading with that project. And
do you find that, this is kind of a, I'll say a pretty forward-thinking concept. Are you finding that this is a difficult one to explain to any of the clients you're working with, or do you finding that if you're talking to the right client, they get it?
So here's what I'm saying. That's a great question. I'm always 10 years out normally, and so normally I have to wait for the world to catch up. Here at results.com. I started MeetingZen before COVID, and online meetings were an early adopter tool. They were the fastest growth category in the history of business. In 90 days, they went from early adopter to full market penetration. So people now have the tools to run the meetings, but, ship meetings in the outside world make even worse meetings in the online world. And so, giving them the capability is what's missing. So the basic meeting stuff, we're finding the people who are adopting it the easiest are the guys who've already done EOS, already done scaling up, and they have the basics of a one-page plan of metrics, of those sort of accountability things. But what we're finding is when we then try to plug it into MeetingZen, it shows them where all the gaps are, and they need to basically give it an upgrade again. So we're calling it level Zen. So, you have a level 10 meeting. So we take that to a level Zen meeting. So we bring
level 10, for those who don't know, is a concept of kind of a management level meeting, right? And in the EOS framework.
Yeah, so that's in the EOS framework. So the two main frameworks we see are EOS and scaling up. And so we're finding anyone who's using those and have, got some mastery there or got the components of that are finding it much more valuable to then, I guess, give that all an upgrade by bringing it all into live real-time management tools. So,
it's an interesting point that you made about thinking like 10 years ahead, because if you think about, go back 20 years, there was Pets.com, there was Webvan, there were a couple of these big .com flame-out companies that were just way ahead of their time, right? People weren't ready to adopt it. Now grocery delivery, especially during the pandemic, became such a common thing. Is there part of you that does that keep you up at night? Thinking like, I love this idea. I think eventually everyone's going to adopt it, but is there a part of you that's afraid that maybe you're too far advanced?
Well, I know with MeetingZen it's not, because I'm using it with a whole range of companies and it's hitting the sweet spot. But it's one step in 4 of my next 4 projects. So this one's very much about me finishing that circle around business development and giving the tool to people that can actually really run a business with everything at their fingertips. Seriously, when you get good at this, you run a leadership team meeting. Yeah. And I run a company all hands, and I can run a 40, 50 person company all hands in 90 minutes, no problem. And everyone's contributing to core value stories. Everyone's contributing to good news. Company heads are talking to their metrics. And what I found when I was running the business with, over 100 employees, actually it was at Results. I had about 50. Yeah. But if I ran those 2 meetings a week and nailed them, everyone knew the top priority, or everyone knew what everyone else was working on. Everyone had committed to their action that they were going to get completed this week. The strategic priorities were, all those projects were checked in, and I literally could go snowboarding for the rest of the week unless something went sideways. So that was, that's where we got to. I've got like my next 10 years of projects mapped out. So, this one's been waiting on AI. And this is basically, now I understand how to bring the data to life a lot easier than last time. And this is a meeting software design for everyone. And then, I'm basically going from here across to the blockchain for my next 3 projects. So
we're going to have to say that for a future interview.
I got a project that I came up with 4 years ago, and we decided the technology's not there yet. So I've got really heavy duty backing for it in the crypto world, but it'd just be too hard now. If we rebuilt Results now, we'd do it at a 10th the cost and it'd be twice the uptake. So that was the lesson.
I the reason I asked this question is because I get excited about the future too. I think about these things, I think about like, we're going to have like self-driving cars And then you're going to your car's going to like leave your driveway in the middle of the night and go to a car wash and get washed in the middle of the night and come back like completely clean. But, if you rolled out that product today, it'd be a little too ahead of its time.
Well, I mean, think about the exponential curve, yeah? Like technology is moving so fast. We're going to have more change in the next 20 years than in all of history. And AI is moving at double the speed of Moore's law right now. Its decision-making capacities, every 6 months, it's doubling instead of every 2 years. So whilst it's always been frustrating, I suspect we'll see an acceleration and change, and we'll all be wondering what the future is going to look like 5 or 10 years from now, because it's it's not going to be shaped by humans for much longer. So
yeah, that's crazy. Well, I want to wrap things up with the question I always ask, which is, I'm a big fan of gratitude, expressing gratitude to those who helped you along the way. I know that it's been a rough couple of years for you. We were talking beforehand, and you lost your son a couple of years ago, and so this is a particularly challenging question for you to handle, but you gave me permission to ask it anyway. So I'll throw it out at you. What are some things people that you're grateful for now, including, the son that was with you for 29 years?
Yeah, he really shaped my life. I became a solo dad at a very young age. Yeah, so I miss him a lot. But I've got 3 beautiful children, all doing well. I've got a lovely partner. I got the best dog ever, who was my son's dog, were his parents, and an hour after we buried him, his dog had puppies. Who was with us. So that was pretty amazing. So all the family members got a dog. But in MeetingZen, I'm very grateful for a couple of people who've really stepped up and helped us. William Weby, who's our CEO, who's basically, when my son passed away, we just started this journey. I was like, bro, I don't know how long I'm going to be. See if you can keep it going. And he's done amazing. And he then brought in a CTO who's basically come and provided us devs from, he's an ex-Fortune 50 CTO. He's got some of the brightest devs I've ever met to get this thing built. Raju. So yeah, Raju from GoPro, I'm so grateful for you, brother, and your support. And William's just been my rock. So, I'm very blessed. I got a lot of people who've believed in me and supported me, and I'm finally feeling capable of going out and doing what I do again, which is, being the interface between the company and the market. So appreciate it greatly. I'm very grateful for you for having me on here, John. So.
Hey, my pleasure. Yeah, it's really cool. I love geeking out on this type of stuff. So thanks for taking the time. Ben, where can people go to learn more about you and MeetingZen and connect with you? Is there anywhere they can go?
Yeah, I'm Ben Ridler on LinkedIn, I'm BenZen on Facebook, and MeetingZen.com. We'll show you how where we're heading. MeetingZen's working great. Setting it up's difficult, so we're sort of helping people with that if they really want to take it to the next level. And we're having huge traction with that. Bringing live data into companies and allowing them to really focus on what's important. So.
That's cool.
Come check us out. Send me hit me up. I love talking about business. It's all I've done for the last 30 years or so.
Yeah, I can tell. All right, Ben, thanks so much for your time.
See you around the EO world, John. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast with John Corcoran. Find out more at smartbusinessrevolution.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list and join the revolution.
Revolution.
And be listening for the next episode of the Smart Business Revolution podcast.